Hey guys, in today's video we're going to look at gearing up a new character for taking on Very Hard and Ultimate. Hi guys, so today we're going to be looking at the Very Hard and Ultimate difficulties for PSO, particularly for Blue Burst. So this is part 2 to the guide. If you want to check out normal and hard difficulty, check my channel, there's already a video up on that. But today we're going to be looking at the later stages of the game, so Very Hard and Ultimate. And we're just looking at things you want to look out for when you get into these difficulties, some useful gear that you might want to hunt for, just to help you get through into Ultimate mode. And then we'll also be looking at Ultimate itself as well, and looking at how you prioritize what you're going to hunt. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll look at Very Hard. So Very Hard, you access it normally by, in the offline versions of the game, you would normally do it just by beating Dark Falz or Olga Floor in hard. On Blue Burst, I believe you need to be about level 40 or 50 for Very Hard. I think it differs by server. So once you get into Very Hard, what you'll realise is that compared to hard mode, there are a lot more variety in the rare drops. You'll also notice that drops that did drop in hard will have much easier drop rates typically in Very Hard as well. So I would say that when you start to hunt rares, Very Hard is where you really start at. You might get a couple of things in normal and hard, but typically Very Hard is where you want to start looking more seriously. So what we've got up here is the drop charts for the Affinia server for Blue Burst. It may differ server to server, so check on your own server if you're playing on a different one. What we've got is all the drops here for Very Hard Episode 1. And the first thing I would be looking at in Episode 1 once you get into Very Hard is the rare enemy drops. So we covered this a little bit in the previous video. So there are a couple of rare enemies in the game, and they tend to drop a slightly higher tier of equipment to your regular enemies. Not always, but it does happen quite often. So what I would be doing is I'd be looking at enemies like Hilda Blue, Alrapi in Forest. There's also Gnarlily and Pubely Slime in Caves, and there is also a couple of rare enemies in Episode 2 Temple as well, and then a few in Episode 4. So I'd probably look at those and just see if any of them have any interesting drops. So if we just move over to Affinia here. So in our last video on Normal and Hard, we made a new character that was a purple Num Rare Mal, and we've also got our red Rhea for New World here as well. And I also have a Skylight character as well. So those are the IDs I'm going to mainly be focusing on for this video. Obviously, just replace that with whatever section IDs you're using in the game. So at the moment, what you can see is we've got a red Rhea for New World. So ideally, we'd like to be getting some more Force gear if possible, but we also want to be gearing up our range that we've made as well. So we're looking mainly for Ranger and Force gear at the moment, and this is how you would do it typically. So you would look at the characters you've got, and what you quite often do is have different characters that can hunt equipment for your other characters. So you might have, for example, one ID that finds a lot of really good armors and shields. So for my characters, that's Red Rhea. So this character will mainly be used to hunt decent armors, shields, that kind of thing. Then if I want to get some hunter weapons, I would use my Skylight character because they get quite a lot of good hunter drops. So it's quite good to have a few complementary section IDs that work with each other. So if we go back to the actual drop charts. So what we do now is we look at the drop charts for Very Hard, and for me, I'm looking at the Red Rhea, Purple Num, and Skylight section IDs. So the first thing I would look at is the Hilda Blue drop, which is the rare Hilda Bear. And I can see that we get a God Arm from the Skylight one. So God Arm is a pretty decent unit that improves your accuracy. So this is really, really useful for hunters and rangers. On Purple Num, we get Hilda Blue's head, which is a body part that's used to make a rod. It's not a brilliant rod, but it's probably better than any of the non-rare equipment you've probably got at this point. So it's still maybe worth looking for. What's actually more worth looking for, to be honest, is the regular Hilda Bear's head. The Hilda Bear's head it makes a really solid rod that actually has fire built in as its special attack. It's only a low level 1, but it allows you to conserve a little bit of TP with Force sometimes. So instead of just burning through all your TP constantly, if you're fighting something that's weak to fire, you can actually use the special attack to do a low level fire instead. So it's one option. And this is quite a useful rod for quite low level Force because the MST requirement's quite low. If we then go to Red Rhea, we get a Cure Shock from Hilda Blue. This is a useful unit that will obviously prevent you from getting shocked. And we get a basic custom frame from the Hildebears, so that's an easy way of getting a rare armor as well. Next we move on to Alrapi. So Alrapi, the Skylight drop we can pass because it's just a last survivor, which is just a fairly substandard rare sword, so we can ignore that. We get a Legion from Purple Gnome, which again might be not too bad for some of our Force characters, and that also has a 40 special attack actually. And then we get Disco Braveman for Red Rhea. Now Disco Braveman is potentially worth hunting, probably not from that drop though. The reason that we probably want to hunt a Disco Braveman is because if you can get one with hit, it's actually a really, really strong weapon for late game, even into Ultimate. It has a set boost with an armor called, I think, is it 13? I'm sure it's an armor called 13 it has a set boost with. But Disco Braveman with hit is really, really strong because it has a Berserk special as well. That's definitely worth hunting. So next we would move on to caves. So again, we'll be looking at the rare enemies mainly. And you can see we got God HP with Skylight, which just boosts your HP by a big chunk. This can be useful for forces when you first get into Ultimate, just because, particularly for 4 new worlds, because you will have so little HP that having that extra boost from God HP can be a help. But it's not something you would definitely need to hunt by any means. What we would want to look at though is the Purple Gnome drop, which is God Mind. So God Mind is a unit that boosts your mental strength by quite a significant amount, and it's pretty much a staple unit for Force until you can get things like Heavenly Mind later on. So God Mind is a really good sort of stopgap until you've got Heavenly Mind. It's a pretty easy drop, so it's 1 in 1.1 from Gnarlily. Gnarlilies are pretty easy to find in caves as well. So if I was going through very hard with these characters, once I get my Purple Gnome into very hard, I would be spending quite a bit of time hunting Gnarlilies to try and find a God Mind, and it shouldn't take too long really. And then on Red Rhea, we've got God Body, which boosts your defense. This typically I don't find that useful. And then lastly, we go on to the Red Slime, so Purely Slime. We get God Body on Skylight, which I've already covered. HP Revival on Purple Gnome, which is a pretty terrible unit. This just gives you HP regen. It's really not worth using. And then we get Devil Technique with Red Rhea. So this boosts the levels of all your techniques by, I believe it's by 2 levels. So the way it works is if you have a level 28 Megid, it'll make it a level 30 Megid without you actually having the level 30 disc. They're not bad to use, particularly if you are trying to get level 30 techs, but I would probably focus more on doing mental strength instead. But it might be something you want to hunt. The big one from all of these really is, I would, if you've got a White Ill character, I would definitely go for the Cure Freeze. So Cure Freeze is an absolutely invaluable unit for Ultimate, particularly for the Dark Faults fight. So I would definitely consider hunting that. So that's what I would do when you first get into very hard. So after this, the next thing I'd be looking at is later in very hard. So again, once we get into sort of ruins, again we've got the Del Saber part, which I covered in the previous video. But if you didn't watch that one, Del Saber's left arm is particularly worth going for, just for the dark resist that the shield provides. Other things we might want to look for, there is a few different armors that can drop in ruins. So you can see the drops are a lot more wide open and very hard. There is actually a couple of things I would recommend, particularly if you're a Force character. So some of the very basic rare Force weapons are actually worth going for. So things like, for example, Stormborn Dindra, Ice Staff Dagon, and Fire Scepter Agni. They boost all of your respective element techs. So Stormborn Dindra, for example, boosts all of your lightning techs by a decent amount. There are also ones that work a little bit differently. So weapons like Club of Laconium. So Club of Laconium boosts Foy, but it boosts it by a huge amount. I believe it's either 30 or 40%. It's a huge boost to your Foy damage. Mace of Adamant boosts the same for Barter. Club of Zumuran boosts the same for Zonde. So they are worth looking at because they do give you a huge boost to your technique damage, even though they are pretty common weapons. And the great thing about the Force weapons as well is that you don't have to worry about getting decent percentages or hit on them. because you're generally not going to be meleeing with them for the most part. You can see we have actually got some really decent weapons starting to show up in very hard though. So we've got things like the Pinkle Caduceus drop. Caduceus is a really, really decent rod that boost grants. What you might have also noticed is the Dark Vault has no drop whatsoever, and this is for every single difficulty in the regular version of the game. On most private servers, he will drop things in Ultimate, but typically there is no drop for faults in other difficulties. So then if we move over to episode 2, again we want to be looking at the rare enemies. So if we look at Hilda Blue first of all, to be honest, most of these drops are pretty garbage. I wouldn't really look at any of these. But a Love Rappy, there's a couple of decent ones. So God Luck is not too bad. That boosts your luck, which affects how often you critical hit. Apart from that, there's not much else worth looking at there. And then Nalali, again, there's not a whole lot. There's a few armor and shield drops, but not much else. Very Hard Episode 4 does have pretty good drops overall, but Very Hard Ep 4 is, I would say Very Hard Episode 4 is probably equivalent in difficulty to maybe the very beginning of Ultimate, so just bear that in mind. So I did mention this briefly, but I mentioned about the Hilda Bear's head being worth hunting. So I've got my phone you will here, and she's actually using the Hilda Bear's cane. So Hilda Bear's cane, it makes this force weapon, which although it's called Hilda Bear's cane, is actually a rod. You would need 400 MST to equip it, and you can see even at level 86 I've got over 1000 MST with this character, so it's really, really easy to equip. You can probably equip this from about very hard onwards, to be honest. As it says, it boosts Foy, so it actually gives you a boost to your Foy damage as well, but it also shoots Foy with its special. So it is a very, very useful rod to go for early on. Other things to point out that I've hunted on this character, so Spirit Garment. Spirit Garment is it's a rare frame that forces can use. Other classes can use it as well. It's defensive and evade stats are not particularly good, to be honest. Its resistances are okay. It gives decent fire resist. A little bit of dark and light resist, but it's not brilliant. The main reason that you hunt Spirit Garment is because you can combine it with a lot of items. So Spirit Garment you can actually combine with a lot of different items to make different armors. Now, the armors that you make with it will always be minimum stats because a lot of the armors you can find regularly as well. But for example, if you combine it with a Magic Rock Moolah, you can make it into armor called Aura Field, which is actually really high-end armor. If you can combine it with a Star Amplifier, I believe it transforms into a Brightness Circle. You can also use things like Magic Rock Heart Key to turn it into a Love Heart as well. And then you can turn the Love Heart into a Sweetheart. So there is a lot of options with Spirit Garment. So I would definitely recommend hunting this. In regards to the actual drop, it's actually really easy to find. So if we move back over to the FNA drop chart, I'll show you how to get that just before I move on to Ultimate. So again, we've got the drop chart open, and what we're looking at here is Very Hard Central Control Area, so episode 2. And if you look at the Gibbles drop, you can see that the red rear Gibbles drop is Spirit Garment, and it's 1 in 45. Now, Gibbles is a mini-boss, but if you do the Quest Phantasmal World 4, the very first floor of that tower has 3 Gibbles, and you just run that over and over again. Then I think I found mine within about 45 minutes or so, so it's really not a very hard thing to hunt. So once you get into Ultimate mode, the final difficulty, this is where the game totally opens up, and this is where you start to hunt the main bulk of the items that you want to find in the game. So this is where typically what you'll do is you'll pick a couple of items that you'll have like an end game goal. So as I've covered in previous videos, there are some items in Ultimate that are incredibly rare. What a lot of people will typically do in PSO is they'll pick one of those items to hunt for. And usually during the course of hunting that, you'll find other things while you're hunting it. But there might be specific things you want to single out as well. So again, if we look at our characters, so if we look at our purple num, for example, first, bear in mind that she's a ranger. The first thing I'd be looking at is this Hilda drop, which is Frozen Shooter. So Frozen Shooter is basically a staple ranger weapon. It's a rifle that its special attack fires a freezing shot that instantly freezes the enemy, assuming the enemy can be frozen. and it's a guaranteed freeze. So this is incredibly useful for setting up enemies, so you can freeze them, then hit them with Zalo, for example, and then just take them out while they're frozen. It's really, really good for like mini boss enemies that can be frozen, but just a very, very useful weapon. You can also use it to upgrade into the Snow Queen as well, which is better for taking out small clusters of enemies. So I would definitely be looking at hunting that, and you can see that drops as a 1 in 2 drop from Hill to Tor on Purple Num, and a couple of other IDs as well. With our red rear, I'd also be looking at Hill to Tor as well, because it drops Magic Stone Iritista. So Iritista, it's a 1 in 21 drop, so it is a much harder hunt. But what this is used for, it's an item that you combine with a slicer to make the Rainbow Baton. And Rainbow Baton is a really strong slicer, so that's potentially worth looking at. Iritista, I believe, is also unique to Red Rear, so I think you need a Red Rear character to hunt that. With our Red Rear as well, I would also be looking at this drop, the Hildelt drop, which is Heavenly Battle. So battle units increase the actual speed of your animations. So they don't speed up technique animations. This is only for melee and ranged. But Heavenly Battle is the fastest increase of that, so I believe it's a 40% increase to your battle speed. So it's just much better for getting attacks in without getting interrupted by enemies. That's a that is a very, very useful thing to hunt. And a 1 in 370 drop from a Hildelt isn't too bad overall if you run a quest that has a lot of them in. So you could potentially hunt Heavenly Battle and Iritista at the same time, because this Iritista is from the rare Hildelt anyway. With our Skylight, the Red Saber drop is not particularly great. I mean, there is a Red Saber set bonus with the Red Coat, but it's not a bad weapon, and it's only a 1 in 2 drop, so if you get Hill to Tor show up, there's a good chance you're going to get it. Typically with Skylight Forest, there's not much really worth looking at. There is a Heavenly Arms drop, but it's a 1 in 1,100 drop from a Gulgusku, so it's not a particularly good drop for that item. There are better options for that. The main one in Skylight Forest is probably Angel Harp, which is a pretty useful rifle that female characters can use. And this is a 1 in 21 drop from Pal Rappy, which is the rare Rappy. So I would probably just recommend just spamming fake and yellow quests over and over again to get Pal Rappies to show up. That's probably worth looking at. But you can see there's certain things you want to focus on. So with my Skylight, for example, I know that Caves is a really, really good area for drops. So you can see in Skylight Caves, we've got Red Daggers, we've got Sanga, we've got Red Slicer, Chain Sword, Red Sword, Demolition Comet, Heart of Flamberge, we've got the Corny Max. So there's some very, very strong drops there for Skylight Caves. So with a Skylight character, we're probably just going to be getting into caves. We're getting strong enough to do caves easily, and then just spamming a lot of cave runs to get as many of these drops as we can. With our Purple Gnome, the big one in caves is probably Psycho Wand. So Purple Gnome does get a Psycho Wand drop, but it's from the rare Lily, and it's 1 in 205. It's an extremely hard drop. It's one of the hardest hunts in the game. There is no good drop for Psycho Wands, but this, if you want to go the rare enemy route, this is probably the best way to do it. You can see there's also a Purple Num card as well, which is more of a novelty item, but it is incredibly rare. With our Red Rear, we've got a very easy Demolition Comet drop from Lily. That's just a really decent double saber, and that will carry you through ultimate no problem at all. We do have a Guide Wave drop, but the drop rate's not brilliant, and it's from a Poor Fuely Slime. And the advantage of this is that Poor Fuely Slimes, they can be taken advantage of because you can use ice or freeze traps on them to actually split them. And by splitting them, you can create more of them, which gives you more chances at the drop. The big one for Red Rear Caves, it no doubt is Lavis Cannon. So Red Rear gets Lavis Cannon from a Red Slime. And it's a 1 in 21 drop, which is probably one of the easiest Lavis Cannon hunts. The difficulty is getting the Red Slime to show up. The way I would do it is probably just spam TTF and just do up to caves. There is a room in TTF Caves that has 4 slimes that you can split, and you can get about 12 or so out of it. So I'd probably just do that, split them all, and then if there's no red slime, I'd probably just pipe back to the ship and restart. But you can see what you're basically doing in Ultimate once you get here is you're picking usually something very, very rare that you want to hunt to take you through to the end game. But there'll be other things you pick up along the way. So a good example of this is in Skylight Central Control Area. So if we go to episode 2, which is here, what most Skylight players will end up hunting is the Sealed J Sword. It's one of the main reasons that people make Skylight characters. And it's this drop here, and it's 1 in 12,603 drop from Gigu, which is a mini boss. It's a horrendous drop. It's one of the hardest things in the game to hunt. And only Skylight gets this as well, and this is the only drop for it. Generally for this, you want to be running Phantasmal World 4 2-floor runs and just spam that over and over again. However, if you can get people to join you, it might be worth just doing full Phantasmal World 4 runs, because there is a lot of things in Skylight Tower that are worth picking up along the way as well. So in Tower, we've got things like the Monkey King bar, which is a really good double save that you can upgrade. So the Monkey King bar can be upgraded into a Black King bar by using a blue black stone on it. That's a very strong double saver. There's also Birdish, which is a really good partisan for androids. There's Yasminkov 7000V, which is a really strong rifle. There's Partisan of Lightning, which is another good double saber. Heaven Punisher, although this would be in Central Control Area, not in Tower. If we go to the actual Tower, we've also got things like Yamigarasu, which is a katana that has an instant kill special. We have Heart of Poom, which is a claw. And we've also got Riker's Claw as well, which is a pretty strong claw that boosts techniques as well. So Skylight Tower is absolutely full of really, really good rares. So there's also Soul Banish from Delbiters as well, which is a strong partisan. So typically what you would do with Skylight is you'd probably just do tower runs, hunt Sealed J Sword, but you'll probably end up finding a lot of this other stuff along the way as well. So quite often it is a good idea to just pick something that's really, really rare, particularly if it's in an area that's got a couple of other decent drops as well, because you'll probably end up finding them along the way. That is typically how I would do it in Ultimate. Of course, that's not the end of things though, because even once you've found some things in Ultimate, then the next stage is getting what would be considered endgame gear. So then what you want to be doing is you basically want to be looking at different gear, and you want to be trying to upgrade the attributes on it. So if I move over to the game now, so here we've got our Ultimate Mode character, and at the moment you can see she has a Sanguinasha, which has 20 native and 35 hit. We've got a Chain Sword with 25 hit. And we've got a Lame d'Argent with 20 hit as well. Then we have a Love Heart, a Standstill Shield, Smart Link, Heavenly Battle, Heavenly Power, Heavenly Arms, and a mag with those stats. So where would I want to improve my gear here? So the first thing I'd be looking at is my mag. So although this mag is really decent stats and has got me into Ultimate no problem at all, what I would like to do is I would like to now have a mag that focuses on trying to max as many of my stats as I can. So if we look at my actual stats, you can see that I've got 1,144 attack power. Now at Uniworld, their attack max is at about 1,237, so I'm quite close to that already. But my MST is only 685, which is way, way off the maximum. So what I would probably want to do at this point is look at creating another mag with some mines on it to boost my mental strength a bit more. Because we're very close to the attack power cap already, so that's not really going to be an issue. I'd probably want to be looking at that and looking to improve my mental strength on my mag. This one actually needs redoing anyway, because the Photon Blasts are wrong on it anyway. So I'd probably want to replace the Fala Photon Blast with Estler as well. So next thing I'll be looking at is, so this Sanguinasha, 35 hit is really, really nice. The percentages are a little bit low on it. So I'd be looking to either use Photon Spheres to increase that native percent, or potentially look for a better Sanga with hit, but with some other better percentages. Sanga is a pretty easy drop. It's a 1 in 2 drop for Skylight from a rare enemy, so it is pretty huntable. So this will do for the time being, but it would be nice to have one with slightly higher percentages. The Chain Sword Again, we could do with maybe one with a bit more percentages on it, but it is nice to have a chainsaw with hit. The Lame d'Argent, this is an interesting one. So this, I probably wouldn't be looking to upgrade it because although it's got 20 hit, which is really, really good for a Lame d'Argent. Lame d'Argent, if you don't know, unseals into a sword called Excalibur, which is one of the strongest weapons in the game. And having one with hit is really, really good. The downside though is because it has a kill counter built into it for the unseal, it actually limits the amount of different attributes it can have. So it can only have 2 percentages plus hit. It might even be 1% plus hit, to be honest. Normally, if you don't know, normally you can have 3 attributes on a weapon in total. But weapons with a kill counter can only have 2. So this might actually... This has 20 hits, so I could potentially have one other attribute on it. So I'd maybe look to upgrade, but to one that maybe has an attribute on one of either native, Air Beast Machine, or Dark, but it's not too important. Next thing would be my Love Heart armor. So the Love Heart is a really, really strong, solid armor for female characters. And it gives you, I believe it gives you a defense boost when you stand near a male character. There is another version of this armor though called Sweetheart, which you use by using another magic rock heart key on it. And what that does is it boosts your attack power instead. I think it might actually reduce your defense when you stood near someone, but it increases your attack power. So Huniwell has quite high defense anyway, so I could probably afford to use a Sweetheart, so it might be worth upgrading that to a Sweetheart. Next up, Heavenly Battle is fine. It would be nice to upgrade this to a V101. So a V101 is a unit that gives you a load of stat boost, but it also gives you a built-in Heavenly Powers. It gives you a built-in Heavenly Battle as well. So it is a straight upgrade from Heavenly Battle. So if I could get a V101, that would be a really nice improvement. If we could get 2, that'd be even better, because then I could replace the Heavenly Power as well. Heavenly Arms is fine. And Smart Link's just a really useful unit for hunters. It basically just raises your accuracy whenever you use ranged weapons, which is really useful for, particularly for things like mech guns. The Standstill Shield is fine. It's got really high defense. Evade isn't great. I would probably want to build this into something slightly better. So one option I tend to look for is something like a Kasami Bracer, which is a shield that has a bit less defense but a lot of evade. That's a really nice shield to use, so I'd maybe look to hunt a Kasami Bracer. So you can see that what I'm doing is I'm looking at the gear I've got and just looking to see if there's any ways I can eke a bit more performance out of it. And this is kind of what you do at a high level, really. So we're just looking to incrementally improve your gear. So I hope that's been relatively useful. Once you get into Ultimate, you will find that a lot of your time will just be spent hunting the Uber Rare stuff. So don't worry too much about improving your gear. It will just happen over time as you hunt things. So I hope that's been relatively useful. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider liking or subscribing. It does really, really help out. And if you've got any comments, by all means, leave them below and I will try and answer what I can. For now, though, I'll end that there. And I'll see you guys in the next video.